Hello everyone. Thank you for joining our live today. We're really excited to share this with all of you. We have 3 artists painting here in Wortley Village this morning, and we have 2 more artists who will be joining us in this Instagram live about halfway through, who are painting live at their home studios. Hi everyone. So this event is in conjunction with our plein air exhibition, which coincides perfectly with our reopening this weekend. So we're back in the gallery and the doors are open. We're very happy to be here. Behind me is some of the work in this plein air exhibition. So all of this work was created outside. We have Andrew Sucre, Linda Calienteris, Jane Roy, Jeanette Obink, Lisa Johnson, and Denise Antea, all participating in this exhibition. Denise, Jeanette, Chris Cape, whose work is over here and in our windows, and Andrew and Linda will all be joining us to paint live today. And of course, we're celebrating plein air, the tradition of plein air painting, which comes from the Impressionists and the act of painting outdoors, and the intention of capturing, the light and the atmosphere of that scene. So that's what we're focusing on with this exhibition and what our artists will be demonstrating today. If anyone has any questions at any point, please feel free to write a comment into the comment board at the bottom there, and I'll be happy to address it. So I'm going to head on out into this beautiful day and go and visit our artists across the street. We sure got lucky with our weather. If anyone saw our post on Instagram this morning, I included a picture of Jeanette Obink painting outside in the winter. So our first artist that we're going to chat with is Jeanette, and she's certainly not afraid to brave all the weather and get out there and do some plein air painting. So I'm just going to try to get Jeanette here.
Well, good morning. It's a better temperature today, sorry, but it is. I don't mind the winter, but it is cold.
Yeah, it's much nicer to be here in this. It's a beautiful temperature right now, a little bit overcast, and just a really wonderful day to be doing some outdoor painting.
Let me take this off because that doesn't look very good.
I'm going to come actually just a little bit behind you here, so we can get in the very first stages of your painting.
Yeah, I'm just blocking in what it is that I'm looking at. And it keeps changing because more umbrellas go up and chairs are being put next to tables. So that's
in setting. So she's got the restaurants and the cafe.
There will be some people sitting. And I already said, those that are sitting there should offer me a beer or a coffee. But, we'll see whether that's
see if you get a drink. Yeah.
That'd be nice. But it'll be fun.
So what materials have you brought with you today, Jeanette?
So I have a Soltec easel, which is my favorite outdoor easel because it sets up in absolutely no time whatsoever. It's got everything with me in it. So area for all my paints and my brushes. So I literally take this and I'm good to go. I have a backpack with me that it fits in, and that carries also some solvent because I'm painting with oil paints. So that's really all there is to it.
Wonderful. So I'd love to hear a comment from somebody if we can hear the artist speaking okay. Anyone able to share if they can hear Jeanette? Okay, hopefully we're good. So Jeanette's working in oils this morning, so she's got some solvents and she's got a nice broad range of colors with her.
Do you want to know the colors?
Sure.
So I have titanium white, light cadmium yellow, a Indian yellow. I've got a, what is it called? Transparent orange iron oxide, which is a very lovely color to mix into things because it is transparent. a quinicolone
Speak
red,
up a little bit louder.
quinicolone red, a viridian green, a cerulean blue, an ultramarine blue. I've added today some Payne's grey because I have a lot of blacks, and I can mix my blacks, but Payne's grey can be very helpful. And then I have a Van Dyck's brown transparent as well to just darken up colors.
Wonderful.
So yes.
That's great. And what is the easel brand that you're using? It's a nice setup here.
Soltec.
Soltec.
It's hard to get.
Okay. Any tips if someone's trying to find one?
If you want to find one, you have to order it through the States. And the company is a very small company out of Utah. But they do gift service. One of my legs broke at one point, and I had to send it back, and they send it back to me all fixed again.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So good setup, worth the money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fantastic. Like, this looks like such a great way, and especially for someone like you, where plein air painting plays a huge role in your practice. You want to have a good setup. Yes. You've got your panel. You're working on panel today.
Yes, I am. So it's a wood panel that has been gessoed with a transparent gesso, so that the wood continues to be a color of the painting, so it's not completely white. I thoroughly enjoy working on this, but for others it might be not that they like. It's total preference, generally.
Yeah.
So.
Great. So she's using a wooden panel here, applied a transparent gesso so that the color of the wood can play a role in the painting, and we don't have any bright whites to kill as that first step, right?
No,
so you get
correct.
to kind of skip that. So you've laid in some rough shapes here.
Yep.
And can you talk a little bit about working from thin to thick in plein air painting with oil?
Very important. So in plein air, you do it all in one go. So you have like 2.5-3 hours to work in. So your first layer you want to get down ASAP. But you don't want to do it in too thickly, because then a second layer or a third layer for highlights or different colors becomes very difficult, because then you start to match in your colors. So your first layer I lay in very, very thin, and I use some solvent because in plein air that tends to evaporate faster, so it kind of dry. It's not completely dry, but somewhat dry. So then your second layer becomes a little bit easier, and then the top layer, which is often what I call the cherries on the cake, the highlights, the bright colors, all of those, you put in really thick, and you lay those really on top so that you're not dragging the paint underneath it.
Yep.
So that you work from thin to thick, from lean to fat. So if my top layer needs a little bit of oil, I've brought some oils with me just in case I would need those. Generally, I can work with it just as the paint itself, because obviously the paint has oil in it as well. So I can work with that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Fantastic. And how did you select the scene that you're gonna paint?
Well, I've been here before, so I know this restaurant, and they do very nice sides.
Yeah.
So
fantastic. All right, I'm gonna just turn this screen back around to me. So Jeanette was just selecting her location here outside. She's looking for something that has a few different layers of depth to it. So instead of just the front of a building, your preference is for something with elements in the foreground, in the midground, and in the background. So that's what Jeanette's going to be working on today, and we will be checking back in with each of our artists.
Yes, so no promises.
No promises on the results.
So you never know at the beginning of a painting whether it's going to be successful or not.
No.
So yesterday I was out and I wiped it. So no guarantees.
Okay, so that was Jeanette saying you never know exactly where a painting's going to take you and whether it's going to work out, but we will be checking in with each of our artists at the end of the day and seeing what happened. Yeah, and if you wiped it, you wiped it.
I will promise I will not wipe it before you paint.
Okay, sounds good. I'm going to turn the camera around once more, and we'll let you paint just for a few minutes here, and we'll all watch. If anyone has questions, please post them. So we can see a couple different things in Jeanette's painting while she's working here. There's some sharper lines kind kind of on with the edge of her brush to lay in some general forms. And then we've got, again, nice and thin paint, some general areas of color, form, and value coming in really thin with the paint so that she can layer on top a little bit thicker through each step.
Yeah, at this point I'm still feeling out as well. Have I made my lines correct? So is it correct how this relates to this relates to the building on the left? Have I got my edges right? Does that make sense?
That makes sense, yeah. So looking at, do I have those forms correct? Is everything relating to each other in the proper scale? So those are the kind of questions that you're really focusing on at this stage, right? It's all about laying in those foundational qualities, and the details will come later. I'll mention while we're here, it's very quiet in the village right now. Like, we've got some people walking around on the streets, but there's absolutely room if anyone wants to watch in person our painters paint. You can certainly come on down. All right, we're going to move along and talk with Denise for a little bit, and we'll check back in with Jeanette later. We've got Olaf here. Give us a wave. Thank you. Thank you so much for letting us use your front lawn for this event. All right, so here we're visiting with Denise and Taya. Denise, we are so grateful to you for joining us in this event because Denise actually, I'll turn this around so you can see me for a second. Denise just moved homes and from city to city as well about a week ago. So we're really appreciative of her for coming out during what I'm sure is a very busy time. Denise is another very experienced plein air painter, and plein air painting plays a large role in her practice as well. Denise studied at the Toronto Real Estate Academy. Is that correct, Denise? Academy of Real Estate. I always say it wrong. And has learned some really great foundations, oil again with Denise. So I'm just going to flip my camera around here.
I don't know what I was thinking. I decided to paint the gallery, but halfway through, a car parked right in front. So I thought, oh, I better get him in quick, and then they just left. So my model's gone.
Yeah, so that's one of the challenges, especially, like I said, we're painting plein air. Oh, we're back. We have a little bit of some connection issues just because we're outside right now. So Denise is struggling with painting on a busy street where things are forever changing. So she's focused on our lovely building here, Westland Gallery, which is from the late 1800s. We're very lucky to be housed in such a beautiful heritage building. But this car that is in the painting is no longer here. So
there's another one now. It's in. It's totally covering it.
So what's your game plan for contending with the changing circumstances?
I don't know. I guess what I'm going to do is, I thought, when am I ever going to be able to do master copies like this? Look at all those beautiful paintings in the window. So hey, I'm going to try to replicate these. Sorry guys if I mess it up. Obviously another car just pulled out in front, so that's kind of wrecking my view. So I'm going to work on stuff around it, and hopefully he'll be gone by the time I start to add color and stuff. But
Yeah.
anyways, right now it's
Fantastic.
just a grisaille or brunaille. I'm trying to put in my little drawing.
So you just mentioned two terms there, grisaille and brunaille. Is that correct?
Yes.
What's the difference there?
Brunaille, I just use burnt umber, and grisaille is you use burnt umber and ultramarine blue, and the two of them together kind of make a gray color, gris, which is, and so when you use the two, you can add more blue or less blue, which can give you cooler or darker, or cooler values or lighter, warmer values. So, but I'm just using the burnt umber, and that's brunaille, which is B-R-U-N, which is brun, brown in French. So,
Perfect. So when we're doing this stage of painting, you're really focusing on, again, capturing form and value. Correct, Denise? Today?
I don't know if I'll be able to finish it. It's pretty complex, but at least I get the drawing portion in.
Yeah, that's okay. And part of the conversation around plein air painting is the different ways that it can play a role in your practice. So sometimes creating full finished works on plein air, which is the case with the work that's displayed in the plein air exhibition inside the gallery. But it also can be a starting point for a work finished in the studio, and sometimes studies created on plein air will turn into larger studio works later on, which is something you've done before, Denise, as well.
And what they have a new term called plenudio, and basically it's the painting started plein air and it's finished in the studio, so they call it plenudio. But there are really people that are really sticklers about plein air. They don't think that they're considered plein air unless they're like 95% done or totally done outside. But I know a lot of really well-established plein air painters, and they come in and they do their glazes and stuff after the fact in the studio. They do it from memory usually, or they try to capture the effect that they want by the glazes.
Yeah.
So,
Fantastic. Well, we'll watch Denise work for a little bit here. And if anyone has any questions, again, feel free to write them into the chat box.
so now I got to try to figure out this really crazy footwork above the.
Yeah, so Denise is now trying to capture the details at the top of the Westland Gallery windows. They were inspired by the building next door, actually. A later addition to the building, kind of the second renovation, I believe, on it.
So I'm not sure if the best way for this is to put in all the darks and then pick out the lights. I'm not sure, but we'll see. Maybe that's the way to go, I guess.
We have a couple folks here joining us in person, which is wonderful. There is still a bit of room in person. We have a 10-person gathering outdoor limit around each artist for stage 1 reopening. And we're asking everyone to please maintain their social distance, of course, with the artists and with each other when they're visiting.
Yeah, this is really not my comfort level. As you know, buildings are not my thing. But, what the heck. At least I'm not on TV, well, kind of.
So Denise is more used to doing plein air that are like fully landscape. So working with an architectural subject is different for her. But then that mention there was Denise was a finalist on Canadian Landscape Artist of the Year Canada in what year was that? 2019? 2018 or 19. A really great little short series reality competition, and actually Andrew Sucre was a finalist on that as well, whom we'll be talking to soon. Someone's asking, Denise, what was the blue color you mixed with burnt umber for the grisaille?
Ultramarine blue.
Ultramarine blue. All right, well, we are going to head across the street and check in with our third artist, Chris Cape, and we will visit with Denise again at the end of the morning. Thank you, Denise.
You're welcome. Thank you guys. Have fun.
Lovely day in Wortley Village. Hi! Say hello, we're on live. Karen is bringing the much needed coffee to keep all our artists going today. So now we're going to visit with an artist named Chris Cape. This is his first time in an exhibition other than our square foot show at Westland Gallery, which is how we came to meet Chris. And he's an artist from Guelph, and for him as well, plein air painting plays a huge role in his practice. Someone's asking what medium Denise is using. She's also working in oils today.
What's your name? Oh, Chris. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Chris. I'm going to turn my camera around here so we can see Chris at work.
Oh, nice.
So Chris is set up right beside Westland Gallery here in this nice little alcove. And Chris, you have picked an unusual direction. I anticipated you to be facing the other way for some reason. So how did you come to pick, what your composition was going to be today?
Well, normally I start out with just a few little quick thumbnails.
Okay.
And I had, sorry.
Oh, I'll just take a peek. So this is his sketchbook. So just kind of weighing out a few options,
Yeah,
right?
compositionally. And then I had, I was going to do Wortley. And as I was standing here, a gentleman came by and we were talking, and he remarked on this alleyway, and I thought, you know what, it is beautiful. And so he convinced me, and I just switched it up and did a couple of thumbnails, and yeah, that's it.
Oh, fantastic. All right. So this is our view then. And actually it's a beautiful building. This church is residential units now. So you've got kind of people's little courtyards
Yeah. It's,
along one side. Yeah.
a few people even come by out of their spots, out of their places.
Oh,
And
that's great.
Yeah, it's
That's
been
great.
loving it, yeah.
So this is kind of nice. We've got 3 different artists starting their paintings in 3 different ways.
Oh, nice.
So when we saw Jeanette, I mean, everyone's laying in their forms, laying in their lines and their composition. Jeanette was using some simple soft color tones already, and Denise was working on the Brunei painting using just a burnt umber to lay in her values. And you're using a contemporary technique, so you've got some black laying in a sketch here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the light's so flat today, it almost gives me a bit of freedom to not be so handcuffed by the shapes of light and shadow. And because of that, I've chosen, inside this little paint box here, I've got all sorts of drawing apparatus in different colors. And sometimes I even go to painting the shapes in, but because it's flat, I decided make it as flat and design heavy as possible and let that move the picture forward. And so with this black, what it's going to do is twofold. It's going to give me that moodiness of an overcast day, and it's going to constantly remind me to keep the shapes flat and simple.
Nice. That makes sense. Looking at some of your finished work that we have in the gallery, you've got some big areas of color. You like to pull in a little bit of kind of saturated colors, making some really creative decisions, working off the landscape, right, as your source material. So that's great. And so what was that black that you're using? What material is that?
This is willow charcoal.
Just some willow charcoal
Yeah,
there.
nice
Great.
and blunt. I want it to be as simplified as possible.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what I'm doing every time I paint, is I'm handcuffing myself to force it into the direction that I want.
Yeah.
I have no control, right? If I see a pretty color, I just want to go after it, or detail, or whatever.
Right. So by using just this one tone right now, we're focusing on, what's going to be my composition, and the color is going to come in paints later on.
Right.
And what paints have you brought with you today?
Oil paints from Gamblin. I did not clean my palette from last night, but that's okay because I had a feeling that the colors would mix well, and that's essentially all it's going to be. I've got my paints over here, and then I'm going to go a bit thicker today, so I brought my cold wax.
Okay, some cold wax there to add into his paint, which is a fascinating technique, gives you some really nice texture. All right, so we can watch you paint for a little bit here.
Let's get started.
And again, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to write them in the chat. Lovely day. I'll just take you guys for a quick walk so we can see what Chris is painting here. So there's nice little bits of garden along the edge. This here is the Westland Gallery. I'm excited to see your creative interpretation of this wall, Chris.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling a bit nervous, but that's always a good sign for painting.
Chris, I see you have some palette knives with you as well. Is that one of your preferred tools?
Yeah, so all of 2021, I've been using the most blunt objects that I can. Again, just to handcuff myself away from detail and to really focus on the foundational elements of a scene and what it's saying to me, what it's giving to me. I want to enhance that instead of being caught up like so many other times in detail and just sort of symbolism, making a flower look like a flower is good, but only up to a point for me.
For you, you're interested in the challenge of moving away from that detail.
Right.
All right, so we'll watch you for a few minutes here.
Got a secret color here, quinacridone opera.
A favorite color?
Right, yeah, definitely. Right now, it's been really good. It's just such a nice, vibrant pink, and to sort of lock in, it sits a bit cool and can be used as a shadow. But then, if some of it peeks through at the end of the painting, it comes out like reflected light. So that's nice. Put that up there.
There are so many different ways to explore plein air painting and utilize it in your practice. We've got artists working from high realism to much more abstracted techniques in this exhibition, and really it's just the act of painting out in the atmosphere that you're trying to capture and focusing on the elements of that scene that you want to portray, right? Light, form, anything.
And I think the more that I'm out here, the more it feels like a conversation between myself and the world. And a successful painting stops being about if it looks like what I'm looking at, and more about if I understand the emotional content of the scene and what it evokes in me, and if I can take that and enhance it in any way, so that when a viewer views my painting, that emotion is evoked in them.
Lovely goal.
Small goals, right?
Yeah. Well, art does have the power to evoke emotion, that's for sure.
And it is fun. That's the other thing.
And it's fun to get out, especially on a beautiful day like this. It's really gorgeous.
Yeah, and I feel like it's good not to be precious at the beginning. Save that for the end when you're fiddling around. But it's fun to just sort of throw paint on and make it happen.
Wonderful. So just like with our other artists, we will be checking back in with Chris towards the end of the morning and seeing where he's at with his painting. I'm going to actually head inside the gallery now and talk with Andrew Sucre and Linda Calienteris, who are remote. We'll see you soon, Chris.
Bye, Dana.
Again, beautiful day in the in Wortley Village. Cafes are open, the patios are open. There's a rack of vintage clothes out there from Filthy Rabina for your perusal. All right, I'm gonna get set up in a nice quiet spot up here in the gallery, and we're gonna bring Andrew into our live. So just one moment here. This graffiti that you're seeing behind me is one of our storage rooms here at Westland Gallery, so I'm just going to get myself set up here. All right. I'm just inviting Andrew to join me here. Hi, Andrew. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm doing very well. Thank you, Danielle. How are you?
I'm excellent. It's great to see you. Thank you for taking part. So Andrew sent me a couple images this morning just before 10, and he had gotten started on his painting already. And Andrew is, again, very experienced in plein air painting. He was a finalist on Landscape Artist of the Year Canada alongside Denise. So you really know how to turn out a quality plein air painting in a short time frame.
All pressure will do that to you every time.
So, Andrew, do you want to tell us a little bit about you and about why you enjoy plein air painting?
Thank you. Yes, a little bit about me. I was a professional artist. I was born in Guyana. I came to Canada in 1974. But being born in the country, I have this thing of feeling at home whenever I'm outdoors, and my art is very connected to my heart. So, if I feel at home being out in this area, on plein air, then it's a natural for me to take that connection from my heart to my brush to my canvas. And I'm at peace when I'm here. If I can get over the stress of having to capture what I'm seeing in front of me onto a canvas, I feel at peace. So yeah, it's great to be out here.
Fantastic. We have one question from someone. Where are you right now?
Aha. I'm standing in a spot that I've landed in 34 years ago. This is the backyard of 197 Clendenin Avenue in the Westland.
So did you moved right to this home from Guyana? Is that correct?
Oh no, there were many stops along the way. No,
okay.
I came to Canada 40-something years ago, so there were many stops along the way. So when I was thinking of where to set up to paint, I have many options. So of course the first was to be in London for this, which I was really looking forward to. Sadly, I couldn't make it, so I'm here.
We'll do this again.
Absolutely, and I will be there. So I thought of going to High Park. I thought of actually even going to Buckhorn because I have to go there for a delivery, and I thought, why not combine the two? I would drive to Buckhorn. It didn't happen. So there were a few factors that played into my setting up here. I honestly believe that as a plein air painter, I should not be looking for the perfect spot to paint in. I need to be able to paint, even if you put me in front of a concrete wall. I should be able to make something of that. Not that there's anything wrong with a concrete wall, by the way. Don't take offense, concrete walls. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it that way. So, I should be able to paint pretty much anywhere I set my easel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fantastic. And you aren't afraid of quite varied subject matter. I mean, Andrew does a beautiful portrait, realism portraits, dynamic, colorful landscapes, beautiful city scenes. So you're not afraid to accept that challenge. Someone's asking, what's your favorite thing to paint? Is it landscape?
I don't have any favorites actually. It's a very good question. I do get it quite often. I don't have a favorite. As I said before, I will paint anywhere I land with my canvas and my paints.
Yeah.
So if I'm in a room with a nude, I will paint that nude. If I'm in Algonquin Park at Ragged Falls, I will paint that scene. So I don't have a favorite. Each one
Wonderful.
has its challenges and each one has its rewards.
Yeah. So can you talk us through how you laid in the early stages of your painting? At what point of your painting are you at right now, would you say?
I would say I'm about halfway through, so I'll show you a little bit of detail of it. Um, the first thing I did was to study the scene. Quite often we get into a scene and we just start painting. There,
Mm-hmm.
there needs to be a moment of reflection. First, I begin by saying, thank you for letting me be here. And then I start studying and I start composing and designing. Composition, what elements am I going to include? The design, where am I placing those elements? So I started by envisioning how these elements play into the scene. What am I going to include? This little bit here, a little flash of color in the back here. There is a canopy at the very back here that you can shade in if it's sunny day. There's a bush that's going to come in here. I don't know the name, but it'll come in eventually. There's a garage here. This is the main house, neighbors. This building is a challenge. So that required a fair bit of study. I know that some of the artists in the group here today are masters of studying architecture and capturing them on a canvas. I've seen Linda do it with great ease. It may appear with great ease. I'm sure she worked hard at it, but this was a bit of a challenge. This is a very irregularly shaped house, and it
Yeah.
took a bit of understanding of perspective in order to get that in. So that was my initial starting point, getting the perspective in, and then designing where all elements are going to be placed. The tree, the bush in the foreground here, the flowers in the foreground, those are going to come in at the end. So when I share my piece later on, you will see these come in.
Fantastic. Someone's asking what medium you're using, and you're an acrylic painter for landscape primarily, right?
No, so thank you for asking. I work with oil, watercolor, pastel, and acrylics everywhere
And what are you
in my
what are you
studio
using
or
today?
on Plein Air. Today I'm working with acrylics.
Okay.
I did send one of the pieces, I think, to you. I might not have. That was done on partly Plein Air, partly in my cabin in Algonquin Park. It was done in pastel.
Okay. Wow. Interesting. Well, we'll take a closer look at the work downstairs, hopefully at the end of this live. And of course, the show is up and it will be on for another 2 weeks still in person. So hopefully everyone can take a stop by and take a look in person. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great.
Some of the pieces that were done on Plein Air in Algonquin Park were taken by Al Gallery. So you have those. It was hard for me to let them go, but you have them.
So Andrew was just recently on a plein air painting trip up in Algonquin, and he texted me a few pictures of what he was working on, and they've come to be part of the show, so we're really happy to have them and share them with you all. So Andrew, one of the standout qualities about your paintings is, without a doubt, your use of color. It's incredible, and you're not afraid to really utilize color to tell a story. So you've already got a lot of color involved in this painting. How do you make those decisions, color decisions?
Let me step back a bit. You did mention the fact that I have a lot of color. That comes from an addiction that I have to my reckless spending habit, which only comes to bear when I'm in an art supply store. Jump out of my personality when I walk in through the door, and the owners of the store recognize that, so they follow me around with a cart. That means when I leave each visit to an art supply store, I have tons of color in my bag. So they show up in my studio, they show up with me when I go plein air painting, and I have to use them. Now, where do I decide to place them? It's a combination of intuition and an understanding of color. Having studied the art from prominent plein air painters,
Hmm.
Robert Genn comes to mind. Other plein air painters, Corey Trepanier, uh, David McEwen. These guys know how to use color, and if I can see the effects they're getting, I can analyze. I could try and put myself, I should say, in their position and making the decisions that they took in order to get the effects they get. So,
Hmm.
having studied that, Blue Smith comes to mind as well too. And Gordon Harrison. These guys are giants in the field. So, if these guys know, or the results they're getting were based on conscious decisions, complementary colors next to each other, or in the same scene, or within proximity, or analogous colors, test them out. So my intuition tells me if I place this orange next to this teal and green and blue over here, that's going to sing. Sorry, I wasn't pointing at the canvas when I did that, but here, right here, that
Yeah.
orange and the red here, next to the teal and the green in here, these guys, a color appears the way it does based on what's next to it. So
Yeah.
intuition and conscious decision making.
Absolutely. The way the colors kind of talk to each other, right? You have to keep that in mind.
Absolutely.
And what those
Absolutely.
colors are going to convey. Yeah.
Absolutely. And everything in your painting is going to talk to something else in that painting, whether it's a line, a form, a shape, a texture, a color. Everything is in conversation with everything else in your painting. And there you start to explore the interconnectivity of everything in your work.
Absolutely. Somebody asked in the chat, how many layers of paint have you added so far?
I was wondering when that would come up. It's a great question. So far, probably about 6 layers of paint, and by the time I'm finished, it'll be probably about a dozen to 2 dozen layers of paint in some places.
Yep.
I have my Liquitex glazing bottle of liquid here.
Okay. So you do like to make use of a glazing technique as
Absolutely.
well?
It's a combination of glazing when it calls for glazing, as well as impasto when it calls for impasto.
So for those watching, if anyone doesn't know, glazing refers to a thin, semi-transparent layer of color applied over a surface, right, to kind of tint the colors underneath. And impasto is a really thick application of paint, so often coming in at like the later stages of a painting.
Absolutely, yeah. And glazing gives you depth, which you can rarely achieve with impasto painting. In the hands of a master, of course, impasto painting can give you some depth, but when you're glazing, it's the influence of the color blending with the personality of the color you put on top that will give you such depth and rich personalities.
Yeah, certainly. One more thing I wanted to cover with you, because you have a really unique experience in landscape painting in that you have done quite a bit of traveling to plein air in some really unusual landscapes in Canada. Can you talk about that a bit?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. When I closed my business, actually even before I closed my business, I was traveling quite a bit in the beginning, combination of sports and art. I played a lot of field hockey. And so the joy, the travel bug has been at me for a long time. And quite often when I did travel in the past for sports, I would pack my art kit. And my sports buddies knew they could drop me off somewhere for 4 hours and come back later and pick me up. And I would have completed a painting while they played a round of golf, for instance. But now since I shut down my business and I don't travel as much for sports, I have focused on traveling and painting, and I've been to the north in the Arctic, the Canadian Arctic, and in Greenland. So I've been to Grise Fjord in the Canadian Arctic, Greenland, Gros Morne in the east, Point Pilet in the south, which is the southerly most part of Canada, and to Haida Gwaii, which is the westernly most part of Canada in the Pacific. So I've been very fortunate to have traveled and painted across Canada and the journey has just begun. So, yeah.
Yes. It's pretty amazing. Your series from the Arctic is so grand. Like those kind of landscapes are just kind of hard to imagine, but you did a beautiful job of capturing them. And I also recall a series with some wild horses where you were kind of focused on a population of wild horses.
Right. How could I forget? I went with Adventure Canada to Sable Island in 2017. That was quite an experience, actually. I painted on the island. Those are feral horses. There were taken there by. There were two instances of them appearing on the island. One from shipwrecks, and also from being taken there as an attempt to habitate the island. And the horses just wanted to do their own thing, and no one is allowed to look after them now. They look after themselves. No one is allowed to get close to them, to touch them. One of the artists, actually one of the passengers on the trip, there's a video of him, Peter Omerod, playing a flute, and the horses came up to him as he was playing. Beautiful. Oh, it was incredible. It was haunting to watch. I think I saw the video, but I heard the story, and I may have seen a clip of it. So yes, I was in Sable Island.
Amazing. Amazing. What an experience. And it's just such a beautiful way to capture a unique environment through paint. That's amazing.
I'm blessed. I'm very fortunate to have been able to do that. So I hope to be able to continue it for a while. And I thank you for your support. So that's been amazing.
Yeah. Well, we have about 4 minutes to spend with you still. So if you want to paint for us for a few minutes and we can watch your process.
Absolutely.
Okay, wonderful.
Let me know how the camera is on the painting because I can't see it. Is that okay?
Okay. We're seeing the side of the painting. It needs to go more over to the left.
How's that?
Yeah, so we're like a real close up. We're just seeing kind of the very front of the house.
Okay, so I'm going to
back up a little bit more. Okay, that's perfect. Yeah, then. Oh, turn it back over to the left a bit. Nope, other direction. Nope, other way. More. No, other. Turn towards your paint. Turn the camera towards the painting. A little bit back. Stop.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change my. Can I change the camera? I doubt
you should be able to. There's like 2 little arrows in a circle. Perfect.
So what I'm doing here is putting in some color on the canopy of the this little shed that's back there at the back of the house.
Yep.
And here I'm going to be putting in some of the windows. So I'm using zinc white, which is a translucent white, to sort of block in where the window is going to go.
Okay, I think you're off the camera right now. There we go.
So that's going to be the blocking in of that one window.
Yep.
I'll put in the details afterwards. In this style of painting, I'll paint around something that's in the foreground. This is a technique that a group of 7 used quite effectively. They would paint something in the foreground and then paint what's in the background afterwards.
Yeah.
One of the things when I teach, I talk to my students about one of the things that's very important for artists to remember. Those of you who are thinking or painting or you're already painting, your brushstrokes are words. They're all art is communication. So your brushstrokes are telling your viewer a sentence or a paragraph, a word. What are you trying to tell them? If your brushstroke says, "Look at me, I'm a brushstroke," then you haven't finished. You haven't finished your brushstroke. Your brushstroke is incomplete. So these brushstrokes, these are underpainting texture and information that's in that window. It's never just a piece of wood. It's never just a piece of glass. There's information there. And because I use a translucent white, there's stuff that's behind that's going to shine through towards the end. And because I have those incidents of white here, I'm going to make make a design decision, there is a sign that's here in the garden. I think it says "Welcome to the Garden." So that triangle suddenly takes. It was a small. It was sort of a rectangle here, but now
Yep.
it becomes a triangle if I add something in here. So you see that?
Right. So being aware of how those areas of the same color are interacting with each other, right?
Yes, and I want to play up the light on the ground, so I'm going to build up that layer. And by the way, there is something I do well, I was introduced to the concept by Robert Genn. It's a way of teaching us to be aware of our brushstrokes and to really understand our brushstrokes.
Okay, what's that technique?
He talked about doing a painting in 39 brushstrokes, and I've done it several times as a demonstration. There's a video up, it's available actually. Where is it? Is it on YouTube or on Instagram? Where I've done several paintings, and the audience is counting 1, 2. Now that's pressure. So I've been able to do several paintings with 39 brushstrokes or less. But if you're aware, and I'll show you what I mean. If for instance, I'm painting the sky, and I have my brush is loaded. Here's my palette. My brush is loaded with 4 or 5 colors. This is going to be one brushstroke.
Hmm.
And what I've done is blocked in information in the sky. I don't want to overwork it too much, but I'll keep, for the purpose of this demonstration, keep that brush going, and I'll retrace the brush stroke in a second. So those are 4 brush strokes now because I lifted the brush here, but the brush started up here.
Mm-hmm.
It started here and it moved around. I left a couple of spots and I ended up back in that area. That was one brush stroke, that whole area. So if we're aware of the results we're getting with a brush stroke, and we assess the results and say, this works, this supports my vision for my painting, then it is a brushstroke that doesn't say, look at me, I'm a brushstroke. It says, I'm part of an energized sky. There are 4 colors on this artist's brush, and he left some information there as opposed to just a brushstroke.
Right. Yeah, beautiful technique. Yeah, very successful. And you can really see that, you know, come into your finished work, that those kind of long, winding, multi-colored marks.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it pains me a great deal to cover up that wonderful information there. So it's possible that I might just, it's too late now. It's the purpose of that demonstration was to show you one brushstroke, and I may have.
Well, that happens sometimes when you're doing a demonstration painting, right? So thank you for sharing that information with us. We're going to hop off and talk with Linda for a little while now.
Absolutely. Can I stay on I'd love to see what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you for sharing with us.
Thanks, Danielle. Bye, everybody.
I have to figure out how to...
Maybe I'll rejoin. No, I'll stay on the call.
Oh, I've got Linda in the view now, but I still have you, Andrew. Do you have an option to pop off?
I'll try it. Yes.
Hi, Linda. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. How are you? Can you see me okay?
Oh, wonderful.
Like
yes, that's perfect.
Like I need to go up a little. Hi. Welcome to my backyard.
Yeah, so we get to see another artist's backyard here. And actually, Linda and Andrew know each other. They have painted plein air together before, correct?
Yes, we do plein air painting together. We went to Algonquin Park a few weeks ago. That was a lot of fun.
Fantastic.
I'm trying to set you up so that I'm like in the frame and not like totally cut off. Hi.
That's perfect. Well, let's chat a little bit here first, Linda.
Okay, hi.
So plein air painting plays a huge role in your practice as well. Well, first of all, where are you? Where's your backyard?
I'm in Unionville, and that's my backyard. I'm painting the tree house, my kid's tree house. It's got a lot of really cool angles, a lot of light hitting it. So I painted it a few times, actually. I painted it when it was like -20 in January, just because I had to get out. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. But I mean, like
That's great.
Right there, so I was able to like bring everything inside when the paint froze. So it wasn't so bad.
That's fantastic. So another artist, we were talking with Jeanette O'Bink earlier today, who's not afraid to brave the elements when it calls for winter plein air painting, and so that's the same for you. You're an all-season plein air painter.
We've gone plein air painting all throughout the year, and you know what? It's just part of the adventure, part of packing up and preparing, and like not knowing what we're going to see when we get there. It's a lot of fun, actually. And winter painting, like there's no bugs, so that's one thing I love about winter painting.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's true. I'm sure that a thick of black fly season can kind of put a damper on the experience.
Mosquitoes, caterpillars, like the last 2 weeks have been kind of gross.
Yeah. So plein air painting, again, for you, plays a huge part in your practice. You love painting plein air. You brought us a whole series of all 9x12 plein air pieces for this exhibition, and they're really beautiful. So what calls to you? I'm curious, because when I was in touch with you, all of your work was that 9x12 size. So why do you make that choice?
I make that choice because it fits in the Pouchade box, so it's totally just efficiency. The box that I have, you can kind of see it, it's a Sienna all-in-one. It's got space on the side of it to fit 2 9x12 or 2 8x10s. I find that 8x10s are too small, but the 9x12s like just slide right in. And because I work with oil paint, I really need that. Like, and especially when we're like trudging out into the forest, like I can't be walking back to the car with my painting like this. So this has been really efficient, and that's why all my pieces are that size. Because I'm at home right now, I'm on an 11x14. So I did expand a little bit since I'm here, but had I been out, it would have been 100% 9x12.
Yeah. So what she's mentioning there was like when you're working in oil and plein air painting, you're going to be left with some wet paintings at the end of the day that you need to transport back out of whatever location you are in, so you can lie them flat in your like palette in your box there and slide them and carry them that way. That's fantastic.
They go back to back and they just slide right in, and only the edges really touch, so nothing has ever been damaged. Yeah.
Fantastic. It reminds me of a presentation we had years and years ago at the gallery. We'd love to have them back, but we haven't been able to. But they do a presentation about the group of 7, and included in their PowerPoint were some amazing photos of their campsites and their canoes with all these wet paintings set out to dry. So
I don't understand. Like, we go with this and wagons and backpacks and carts, and I don't know how they did it, just throwing like their paints in a canoe and going out with the bugs and the bears, and like I have no idea how they did that.
That's amazing. So
many amazing pieces.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you're let's talk about how you picked your subject matter for today. So you're mentioning you painted this tree house before, and you love the light. Light in this area.
And right now I'm going to angle you. Maybe I'll take you off for a second. Let's go for a walk. So one thing I really love about this space, I don't know if you can see like all the speckled light filtering down through the trees. And in the
beautiful.
Like the sun will come up this way, so it'll be more light. So the shadows on here are really, really awesome. Oh, there it is. So you can see it from there.
Yeah. Yes, beautiful.
Like that is just gorgeous. And the other thing I love about it is the pattern of like the edge of the pool kind of coming in. So, and then one thing I love about plein air painting is that you can really bend the landscape. A lot of what I do is set you back up here so I can be hands-free. Hi. So a lot of what I do actually is commissioned artwork of motorsport and portraits and pets or still lifes or whatever people send me. And it's really highly detailed work. Everything has to be in place, otherwise it's not going to look like what it's supposed to look like. So Plein Air Painting for me has been this kind of like adventure where I can just be free and do something fun and bend the landscape and change the light and change the way that things are moving so that the composition is correct. Whereas where I'm working with like other compositions where I'm doing commission pieces, like it's got to be how it is in the photo, and I can't really stray from that much. I'm going to show you the piece that I'm working on so far. I'll take it off of here because
Yeah. So again, Linda's work is in our plein air show, and you can see a number of them in person. Beautiful. Can you kind of pan it?
Ugly stage right now. I don't know if you can. There we go.
Perfect. That's great.
So I can really change the landscape and change the perspective of it also. So it's not so finely detailed, so that it bends, so that the composition kind of comes at you, so you can kind of follow my brush strokes to the back of the painting. So that's usually the goal of what I do when I'm plein air painting. Yeah. But that's where I'm at so far.
That's beautiful.
So I started probably like 10 after 10, so we're still on like the yucky stage. So this is the first layer, and the second layer will be the final layer. After this, I'm going to go in with the correct color and the correct spaces, and in about an hour, that'll be it.
When you do you do any kind of drawing at the beginning?
No.
Go right in with your paints. In color. Beautiful.
Again, it's because I do that highly detailed motorsport work as what I do. It's really nice to just kind of let loose and not draw and just use like a brush. Like I usually just kind of hack it in with a brush. And it's just like the basic shape of it. And then from there, I try to find the light. And I always start from like the lightest because it's oil paint and it gets really muddy if you start with the dark going to light. I put in the light and then I find the shadow and then I paint in whatever is in between after that.
Oh, fascinating. You have an act for that because the color in your pieces is really, really clear. There's tons of light in these pieces, these beautiful, like clear singing color in your pieces, and that people have already been noticing. We just opened the doors yesterday for the first time after lockdown, and we've got tons of comments on your beautiful work already. So hopefully everyone can come and see. I'm assuming that's something that appealed to you about this composition as well as kind of the colorful toys, because you do seem to have such a love of color.
I do, and I try to find it anywhere, and I've noticed that even throughout the seasons when you feel like it's winter and there is no color, there is still so much color out there. And I always work with a limited palette. Like I started off with 4 colors, and now I've kind of branched off into like 5 or 6 or 7 more colors. But I find that using that sort of limited palette kind of forces me to mix and mix and mix, and to make it kind of make it work for the painting, and to find the color and to find the light. That's always my goal. Like, where is the light? Where can I find it? How can I find it? Yeah.
There was one, so I'll get back to that question actually. So you've got a limited color palette. What are you using today?
Okay, so my original limited palette was cadmium yellow, ultramarine blue, cadmium red, and titanium white. And diazoxazine purple, violet, I don't know. And from there, I've kind of expanded to a warm and a cool palette. So that was kind of the warm palette. And now I've also added in lemon yellow, permanent rose, flake white as a mixing white. What else do I have? Oh, and I just added burnt umber. That was like a big deal for me. I've never used brown before. I always mix my own brown. I like to use brighter colors because it kind of makes my palette brighter, I guess, and then I'll mix the neutrals from there.
Yeah, beautiful. And how long have you been painting for? Someone asked in the chat there.
About 2 years now.
Yeah, I thought you were newer to it. Yeah, that's fantastic. You've really thrown yourself fully into painting.
I have really thrown myself fully into painting. That is absolutely I started off painting portraits because I figured if I learned how to paint portraits, then I could probably figure out how to paint all the other things. And it worked. I started off with 30 portraits in 30 days. And then from there, I went from 100 portraits to 100 days. And then after like the 50th portrait, people started ordering things. So it just kind of grew from there. Now I paint a lot of motorsports. My kids race go-karts. So I would bring this whole setup to the go-kart track, and I'd paint the go-karts on the go-kart track. So then, you know, parents started asking me, can you paint my go-kart? So that's how that all grew. And then I started painting plein air with my friends. Just that was something that I started last summer, and it is so much fun. And especially now with the lockdowns where we can't do a lot of things, you know, packing up the pochade and my stuff and a lunch, and just driving out to the country and stopping on the side of the road to paint cows has been really, really thrilling. It's been a lot of fun.
Oh, that's
I wish
amazing.
I could be there. We had plans, Andrew and I had planned to come and see you, but it didn't work out. So I'm hoping we can do this again at some point.
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't think we can have people painting in the village too often. It's always enjoyable, and everyone loves to stop and take a look. So hope to have you again.
That would be wonderful. And I have like a whole team of painters who would probably love to come and join Paint London.
That's amazing. Well, I'd love to see you paint for a little while if you're able to direct your camera at the canvas.
Let me MacGyver this a little bit so that you can see what I'm painting a little bit more. I'm going to bring it closer.
Sounds good. Did you have many creative outlets before you dove into painting?
I always did it as a hobby. Like I always painted. I started with watercolors because it was just easy. I have 2 small children, so like I could put it on like a tray, set it up, and then when they woke up from their nap, they just put away the tray, and then everything would be like clean. But like now that they're older and they're doing their own thing, I've got a little bit more free time. So and oil painting. Oh my gosh! Once I started oil painting, like there was no, like it's just like. It's like butter. I've converted all my friends to oil painting too, just because I can't shut up about it.
That's fantastic.
I'm gonna see. No, now you're too low. Now you're too high. So I'm gonna lower the tripod just a bit. Okay, so bear with me. This might get bumpy.
No problem.
How's that?
That's great. That's perfect right there.
Is that okay? So you can't see what I'm painting, but you can see kind of what I'm doing. Okay, so so this it's all kind of set up. So now I can start kind of mixing. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to
you figured out your composition.
Yeah, so the composition is in, the basic color palette is in. I'll go, once I put all the smudgy parts in, with a thin line of violet. Like that's my underpainting color. Like I know most people use like numbers and like more neutral colors, but I just love color. So I'll do my underpainting in violet, and then I'll go back in with the lines and then kind of carve it out to see where it all is. Oh,
fantastic.
Nice back here. Hey, hey.
Yes.
Okay, so I've already mixed, like no pressure or anything, like.
That's okay. We do a lot of painting demos and stuff with Westland Gallery, and you're kind of painting and teaching at the same time, which is a challenge.
Yes, I am.
No worries.
Yes, I am. So I'll mix my color on my palette. I have a glass palette. I love my glass palette. It's really easy to clean. So I mix my color, and then I stick my paintbrush up and I close one eye and I put it next to where the color is, and I match it. So that's how, and I don't put color down if it's the wrong color. So I'll really take the time to mix the right color and put it in the right spot. And that's how I can kind of do these pretty efficiently. Okay, so now I'm going to add in the light of the ladder. Probably a little bit more light. So my first step next is, like, once I'm doing, after I do this part, is to find where all the light points are.
Yep.
And I'll add in all the light.
And yes, Linda is painting with oils today.
Yes. So, and anytime I mix a light color, I always add yellow to it because sunlight is yellow. So a lot of times when I started, I used to start and just add white to make things lighter, but then I realized that like sunlight actually has a color. So
absolutely.
Yeah, so I started adding in a little bit of yellow to it, and then it kind of popped. So where else? The light is kind of back here now. So the light is going to change. So that's why I always start off with adding the light in first, because at least if it does change, like I don't have to change too much. I know all the light is actually in there, and there's actually some really beautiful light over on the slide. So a lot of what I do is mixing. I actually spend more time mixing than I do painting.
That's amazing. Color mixing is an important skill, and I've heard many artists make the recommendations that you've just made, especially when you're starting out, to kind of begin with a limited palette, and you'll end up with building your expertise of color mixing, and B, you'll end up with a unity in your painting, I think.
Exactly. So when I first started painting, I only used 4 colors. It was phthalo blue, quinacridone red, Hansa yellow, and titanium white. And I did that for only a year. Only those 4 colors. All of my portraits were only in those 4 colors. And from there, I'm like, okay, let me expand a little bit and try, you know, cadmium yellow and see what happens. So what I would do is actually I would swap out 1 color. So I'd still only go for the limited palette, but then, like, you know, change out the yellow or change out the red or change out the violet and then see what happens. You end up with a really uniformed painting, and it forces you to mix, and it forces you to find the color within that palette. So now, like, my new thing is I've been doing these still lifes with only 4 colors, and they're 4 like totally colors that don't make sense. It was orange, turquoise, and permanent mauve, purple. So purple, orange, and turquoise. And it created this incredible gray palette, which is absolutely really gorgeous. Okay, sorry, I'm supposed to keep painting.
No problem. This is great advice for anyone who's a little bit intimidated by color and starting out. It's wonderful advice.
And it's also like it's a great way to get started if you're thinking about working with oil paints and you just want to grab like 4 colors. Just do red, white, any palette. Of red, you know, 4 colors that make you happy: red, white, and blue. I've realized in order for it to be balanced, it needs to be like partially cool and partially warm. So either like warm blue, warm red, cool yellow, or some sort of variation of that. And then make yourself a color wheel. Like I've made tons of color wheels over the years. I'll pick a new color, I'll make a new color wheel, and then say, okay, wow, I don't like it. It's not balanced enough, or I'll add a new color, or whatever. Yeah. So see what
it's amazing, but spending that time.
And this is why all my friends reverted to oil, because I can't shut up about how much I love painting. Okay, here we go.
Yeah,
so
that's great. Yeah. A lot of what we're talking about today in the context of plein air painting is decision making, working on this painting. So whether that's composition, laying in your lines, deciding what to include and what not to include, and absolutely color mixing comes into that as well. Someone's asking, where are you selling paintings? Your 4 CLR experimental painting. So Zirka Fine Art.
They're on my Instagram.
So send a message afterwards. Yeah,
okay. So they're on my Instagram, and I've actually labeled them as, I started a series, and the series is called Permanent Mauve Doesn't Suck. Because I had permanent mauve on my, I bought it by mistake, and I had it in my basket for like a year. And I never used it because I never knew like what it could do, or I'm like, permanent mauve. But when you mix it with orange and turquoise, like it sings. It
comes to life. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's really good. So yes, it's on my Instagram page if you want to. It's The Painting Greek.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Okay, we're back. Okay, so I'm adding in the light back here. So, and there's light on this thing. So I actually like to dial up the colors a little bit while I'm working. Just kind of makes it more interesting.
Yeah, punch them out.
Yeah.
This is wonderful, Linda. We're going to have to hop off and check in with our in-person painters. But we would love to see the finished result of this painting at the end. So make sure to, if you're done before noon, we can check back in. And otherwise, take a picture of it, and we'd love to share that with everyone after the fact.
Thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun.
It has. Have a great day. Do you mind taking yourself out? My expertise with live is not, I guess.
Okay, let's see if I can figure out how to do that. If I can. Okay. Nope. You know what? Why don't I just shut it all down, and then maybe that'll do it.
Sounds great. Thanks, Linda.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, there we go. Leave.
All right, I'm going to make my way out of the storage room here and back outside, and we're going to check in with Denise and Jeanette and Chris and see where they're at. Okay. So I'm in our upstairs gallery here. For anyone who hasn't been to Westland Gallery, we call this area the apartments, and we have tons of beautiful work on display there. These are a couple of Jeanette Obig's larger studio works as well. These are the beautiful windows that Denise is working on capturing in her plein air painting. And the gallery here. We've been so fortunate with the weather today. It's beautiful. So we'll just head on over and say hello to Jeanette again. Thanks for the feedback, everyone. I've been watching the little hearts appear in the corner, and we appreciate the feedback.
Oh, you're back already? I have nowhere near finished.
That is A-okay. We'll just check in and see where you're at now. So this is the progress on Jeanette's piece. Jeanette, do you mind if I just come in for a close-up here? I'll just take a look. Lovely.
It's still a total mess.
Well, it's nice to see everyone does such a different technique, right? And you've got these beautiful kind of soft edges, which I say come into your work a lot, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and there's when there's vegetation, there's always soft edges, right? So, and then you play with what is soft and what is hard, and obviously with an architectural one, which this is, there will be a lot more hard edges than I would normally have in, like, unless there's
pure
a farm,
landscape.
like unless there's a farm or a barn or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, nature has very little hard edges.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So how's your painting been going this morning? What decisions have you had to make? Any challenges you've faced?
The challenge I'm facing is that my current painting is very flat yet. So I really have to pull the front forward with higher contrast and push the ones at the back further away with less contrast. So that's where I'm currently at. So it's still fairly undeep. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So yeah, Jeanette was just mentioning there's a couple different strategies for adding depth to your painting, right? Generally speaking, the farthest away, they'll be a little desaturated in color, a little looser in focus, right? And you're going to have higher contrast, more saturated color, and crisper in the foreground.
Stronger contrast and harder edges at the front.
Yeah.
So softer edges at the back. So I will have to move those buildings into the vegetation. Even though our eyes can see it, when you paint, you have to kind of make decisions that help the viewer to see what it was that you were seeing, to see the depth in a painting, because obviously we're fooling the eye because we're doing two-dimensional stuff that we're suggesting is three-dimensional.
Absolutely.
So sometimes you can't paint what it is that you're seeing. You have to really play with what you know will work to create that depth. So although I can see the edges of the trees against the sky, when I'm looking at it, in reality, when I'm painting it, it will be very soft-edged, just because they're far away.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. Lots of discussion about decision making today in the context of plein air. So you have your inspiration in front of you, but there are a lot of creative decisions to be made in how you're going to convey that to your viewers. So we'll take a look again here at Jeanette's palette. Like, that's always interesting. You've got your colors lined up here on the side.
Always the same.
So Jeanette just mentioned she lines her colors up in the same order on her palette.
All the time. You know, the reason is, like, someone explained it to me one time, and I have always done it, but someone explained it really well to me, and it said, if you learn to play the piano, your keys are always in the same spot, so you know where to hit them. With paint, it's the same. You know, if you know where your paints are, it becomes an intuitive, you know, where do I go to? Yeah. So it helps. So that's what I always advise my students as well. You know, put your paints in the same order every single time, because then you'll know which blue will do what when you're painting. And it's less, if you're making it easier, that's what it is. Yeah.
What advice? And Jeanette does do a lot. You do some teaching, run some workshops and plein air workshops as well, and still life workshops. Yeah. Wonderful. I'll film you painting a little bit more here. And we'll try our best to share some of these finished works on Instagram and Facebook later on. If
when I'm done, it will be beyond the time when this event is happening.
Yeah.
So I might have to take it home and work on it in my studio, but
Yeah.
I promise I will send it to you guys.
Yeah, yes, of course. Thanks very much. And our artists have definitely run into light challenges this morning. I think it's been overcast and then it's been sunny at different periods, so that's always a challenge. I love this saying on Jeanette's shirt here. Don't know if anyone can hear the saxophonist in the background, but there's a lovely soundtrack to these artists painting today. And that's out front of Curiosities. So it's a beautiful day to visit Wortley Village. Lovely. We will check back in with Denise over here, who's been working away. How are you doing, Denise?
It's coming. I won't by any stretch of the imagination finish it. But I don't know. It's coming. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
I only have one color on my palette, but somehow or other I managed to get it all for myself.
Denise is a high realism painter, and so we're often looking at a longer number of hours for each completed piece in this style for sure. We've laid in some beautiful shapes. You can recognize this is Shashwa, our neighbor.
Yep.
And the Westland windows.
Now the front work that's on the top of the window, that in my is going to have to be put in with the lights on top.
Absolutely. Yep.
Right. So I'm just going to put in the dark across, and then I'll work on the light on top.
Yeah. So these are the detailing along the top of our windows there. So Denise you're going to put your lights in as your last element, right? So she's going to do the shadows of the windows, and then the form there will come in at the end with some lighter color.
Yeah, it's just too. I don't have a fine enough brush to be able to put in, make it as good as it needs to be at this point. So that gets the idea across.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Can I ask? Just wait for that loud truck to go by. You have your easel turned from when we last spoke to you. So why is that?
It's turned?
Like it's facing that direction.
Well, it doesn't. It's not tight for some reason, but it doesn't matter because I just keep turning
just
and
pan back and forth.
Anyway,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it probably did shift. It was still in the same spot, standing in the same spot.
Yeah.
And just and I'm just looking across the way and right.
Yeah.
But it's quite a challenge because, as you know, there was a red car parked there, so I hurried up and I got as much as possible in. And they started to leave, so I was like, oh my God, finish it. So I hurried up and I scribbled that. And then a big truck came and parked totally in front. Now there's another car in front. So that's the way. And I took a picture in the beginning before the vehicles got there, so if I have to reference it to get details later on, I can do that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? But
I must say, I love this detail of our wonky little open sign. But I was it's been around with us for quite a while, but I was really happy to put it out the other day and open the doors to the gallery.
No
So
kidding.
we're really grateful. Thank you for joining us today, Denise.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure. It was nice to get away from the packing boxes.
Yes, that's great. Well, do you want to paint a little bit more, and I'll film you for a couple minutes here? Or?
Oh, sure. So anyways, I'm trying to do the letters in here, and
Hello. Welcome.
my white girl. It's a challenge.
Absolutely.
It's all about taking away sometimes.
So because Denise is working in oils, she's got a Q-tip here, and she's able to kind of just lift out some of the darker colors, pull back to the light.
The brush is not the best for this. You can see my advertising influence here. I cannot stand it when typography is bad.
So Denise has a background in advertising, yeah. So she's focused on capturing this text, this typography here really specifically. Well, thanks for sharing, Denise. I'm going to go say hello to Chris.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, this morning. It's been lovely to share this with all of you. I'm going to stop in on Chris Cape, and we'll see how his painting is progressing. And then I'll take you for a walk through the gallery, and I'll show you the plein air exhibition that's on. And we have a lot of work from other exhibitions that were disrupted by our COVID lockdown, so we have a lot of great work to share with you. So I'll take you for a gallery tour after this. One second. Hello, Chris. How's it going?
Really good. Making a lot of friends.
That's great. Yes, we're so fortunate to be here in Wortley. It's just such a lovely neighborhood, and lots of walking traffic and a beautiful day. So we really lucked out here.
Oh, my word, did we ever luck out. Now I just got to worry about this painting.
So how has it been going? What kind of challenges and decisions have you met?
Really, it's about the small little temperature changes in the end of this sort of sidewalk scene.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, right now the light's fantastic, but it's been overcast the whole day. I need to be able to push sort of within the degree of cool and warm to be able to show depth, because the values are all the same essentially. And so it's really just nailing that temperature, that fine temperature difference.
Yeah. So again, it's we hear some of the same points brought up by other artists. Those are the challenges of plein air painting. So trying to capture our warms and cools and create contrast. And you know, you're painting from a landscape, but there's tons of creative decisions to be made in how you're going to put that final piece together.
Yeah, right. I mean, when you look at something, regardless of whether it's a person's face or flowers, I mean, it's going to affect you differently. And I think that's the hardest thing for me to sort of hang on to, is this idea of being truthful to my own voice, which seems like it should be easy because I'm always trying to do it, but I'm wrapped up in the end product, whether people are going to like it, whether it looks like what I'm painting, that I sort of lose sight of the grand scheme, just being honest. And I think that's what people really gravitate towards, is honesty.
Yeah. Very relatable for all the creatives watching, I'm sure. Kind of all the things going through your mind while you're creating a piece and trying to make it immediate and authentic and all of that. So thanks for sharing.
No problem. So I think it's going to take longer than I thought, but I love talking to people, so I'm not too mad at that.
That is a-okay. I am going to take everyone for a gallery tour, and then I'll wrap up this live video, but I will keep checking in with our artists as they paint this afternoon, or like the rest of this morning and this afternoon, and share any finished works that I'm able to with you all. So I'll just head into the gallery. Thank you, Chris.
Nice.
All right. Oh, I should probably start with the window, so hold on here. We're really fortunate at Westland to have these beautiful front windows, and we've made really good use of them throughout the lockdown as a way for people to view art. So we have Jeanette O'Bank here, beautiful beach scene. This is Nancy Calder. Nancy's show happened at the very kind of early to mid lockdown. And so we have some new work in from that exhibition, and it's kind of, there's a reboot of it on the walls. This is one of Linda Calianto's finished works. Another Jeanette O'Bank with this beautiful wash line. Lisa Johnson, another of our plein air painters. She wasn't able to join us today, but she is part of the exhibition. This is a finished work by Chris that we just spoke with. And another one there. We have some additional work in our windows too. Another of Jeanette's plein air pieces, some beautiful glass work by Jane Wright, and another of Lisa Johnson's. We'll head on in here. So this is our plein air exhibition on the walls. For the next 2 weeks, you can stop by and see the work in person. These are by local artist Jane Roy. She also wasn't able to join us today, but that's her beautiful work there. All of these paintings were created plein air, outside. Such varying approaches and such varied results. And as always, you can find all of this work online on westlandgallery.ca as well. So once again, thank you everybody for joining us. If you have